Mr. Trump.
Yes.
You've done very well in this campaign so far by promising to build a wall and make another country pay for it.
Right.
Send 11 million people out of the country. Cut taxes $10 trillion without increasing the deficit.
Right.
And make Americans better off because your greatness would replace the stupidity and incompetence of others.
That's right.
Let's be honest. Is this a comic book version of a presidential campaign?
It's not a comic book, and it's not a very nicely asked question the way you say that. Larry Kudlow, as an example, who I have a lot of respect for, loves my tax plan. We're reducing taxes to 15%. We're bringing corporate taxes down, bringing money back in, corporate inversions. We have $2.5 trillion outside of the United States, which we want to bring back in. As far as the wall is concerned, we're going to build a wall. We're going to create a border. We're going to let people in, but they're going to come in legally. They're going to come in legally. And it's something that can be done, and I get questioned about that. They built the Great Wall of China. That's 13,000 miles. Here we actually need 1,000 because we have natural barriers. So we need 1,000. We can do a wall. We're going to have a big, fat, beautiful door right in the middle of the wall. We're going to have people come in, but they're coming in legally. And Mexico's going to pay for the wall because Mexico, I love the Mexican people. I respect the Mexican leaders, but the leaders are much sharper, smarter, and more cunning than our leaders. And just to finish, people say, oh, how are you going to get Mexico to pay? A politician, other than the people on this stage, I don't want to insult, a politician cannot get them to pay. I can. We lose. We have a trade imbalance.
But
with
Mr.
Mexico,
Trump, hold on a second.
John, of $50 billion.
We're at 60 seconds. We're at 60
seconds.
seconds.
The wall is peanuts by comparison.
We're at 60 seconds, but I got to ask you, you talked about your tax plan. You say that it would not increase the deficit because you'd cut taxes $10 trillion and the economy would take off like, hold on. The economy would take off like a rocket ship.
Right, dynamic.
I talked to economic advisors who have served presidents of both parties. They said that you have as much chance of cutting taxes that much without increasing the deficit as you would of flying away from that podium by flapping your arms really.
Then you have to get rid of Larry Kudlow, who sits on your panel, who's a great guy, who came out the other day and said, I love Trump's tax plan.
John,
thank you, Mr. Trump. John, listen, I'm balanced.
The tax foundation says, has looked at all of our plans, and his creates, even with the dynamic effect, $8 trillion deficit.
Gentlemen, we'll get back to this. Just a minute. No, just a minute. We're going to continue with this. I want to talk taxes.
Hold on, Gunnar. We're coming back to you in a minute. Becky's moving on.
Dr. Carson, let's talk about taxes. You have a flat tax plan of 10%.
We're going to have a 10% tithe, and that's how we're going to fund the government? And we're going to just fix everything with waste, fraud, and abuse? Or that we're just going to be great? Or we're going to ship 10 million Americans or 10 million people out of this country, leaving their children here in this country and dividing families? Folks, we got to wake up. We cannot elect somebody that doesn't know how to do the job. You got to pick somebody who has experience, somebody that has the know-how, the discipline, and I spent my entire lifetime balancing federal budgets, growing jobs, the same in Ohio, and I will go back to Washington with my plan, and I will present it within 100 days, and it will pass, and it will be strong again.
Mr. Trump, 30 seconds.
First of all, John got lucky with a thing called fracking, okay? He hit oil. He got lucky with fracking. Believe me, that's why Ohio is doing well. And that's important for you to know. Number two, this is the man that was a managing general partner at Lehman Brothers when it went down the tubes and almost took every one of us with us, including Ben and myself. Because I was there and I watched what happened, and Lehman Brothers started it all. He was on the board and he was a managing general partner. And just thirdly, he was so nice. He was such a nice guy. And he said, oh, I'm never going to attack. But then his poll numbers tanked. That's why he's on the end. And he got nasty. So you know what? You can have him.
Okay, let me respond. First of all, Ohio does have an energy industry, but we're diversified. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country. We came back from the dead. And you know what? It works very, very well. And secondly, when you talk about me being on the board of Lehman Brothers, I wasn't on the board of Lehman Brothers. I was a banker, and I was proud of it, and I traveled the country and learned how people make jobs. We ought to have politicians who not only have government experience, but know how the CEOs and the job creators work. My state is doing great across the board, and guess what? In 2011, I've got a deal in agreement with the board that he tried to take credit for 4 years later. It's a joke.
Thank you, Governor.
Dr. Carson, let me give 30 seconds to Dr. Carson.
Since I was attacked, too.
Thank you.
Let me just say, if you're talking about an $18 trillion economy, you're talking about a 15% tax on your gross domestic product, you're talking about $2.7 trillion. We have a budget closer to $3.5 trillion. But if you also apply that same 15% to several other things, including corporate taxes and including the capital gains taxes, you make that amount up pretty quickly. So that's not by any stretch pie in the sky.
Becky, if you want all of this. You said that you did great with Atlantic City, and you did, but some of the individuals, the bondholders, some of the contractors who work for you didn't fare so well. Bankruptcy is a broken promise. Why should the voters believe the promises that you're telling them right now?
Well, first of all, like many other very big businessmen, I could name them here, but I'm not going to do that for a lot of obvious reasons. But the biggest, and almost all of them, they've all used the chapter laws, the bankruptcy laws, to their own benefit. Before this, I was a very successful person as a developer and as a businessman. Atlantic City has gone bad. I mean, Chris will know about that. I'm not blaming Chris, by the way, but he will know about that. Caesars, the Rolls-Royce, as you know, is in bankruptcy. Almost every hotel in Atlantic City has either been in bankruptcy or will be in bankruptcy, the biggest. But also the biggest people. Now, I've used that to my advantage as a businessman, from my family, from myself. I never filed for bankruptcy, but many, many people did. What happened with Atlantic City is very, very disgraceful. Now, hundreds of companies I've opened. I've used it 3 times, maybe 4 times. Came out great, but I guess I'm supposed to come out great. That's what I could do for the country. We owe $19 trillion. Boy, am I good at solving debt problems. Nobody can solve it like me. But I will tell you this, Atlantic City, you're using that. Hundreds of companies that I've opened have thrived. I built a net worth of way over $10 billion, and I've done it 4 times out of hundreds. And I'm glad I did it. I used the laws of the country to my benefit. I'm sorry.
Mr. Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Carson, in recent weeks, a number...
Very simple. We're going to make a really dynamic economy from what we have right now, which is not at all dynamic. We're going to bring jobs back from Japan. We're going to bring jobs back from China. We're going to bring, frankly, jobs back from Mexico, where, as you probably saw, Nabisco is leaving Chicago with one of their biggest plants, and they're moving it to Mexico. We're going to bring jobs and manufacturing back. We're going to cut costs. We're going to save Social Security, and we're going to save Medicare.
Governor, you just heard him.
You have to reform Social Security, and the simple way to do it is to make sure that the wealthiest don't receive the same benefits as people that are lower income, and make sure that you enhance savings in the private market. The idea of 401ks. I have a small business that I set up. It took an arm and a leg to be able to set up a 401k. Because of all the federal mandates and federal laws, it was too expensive. We need to incent private savings and make sure that Social Security is protected for those that have it. But the idea that you can't, they're just going to grow your way out of this. I have a plan to grow the economy at 4%, but you're going to have to make adjustments for both Medicare and Social Security.
Governor Kasich,
I want
you
to
want
tell
30
you,
seconds?
in my state, we took Medicaid, the hardest program.
Our country doesn't win anymore. We used to win. We don't win anymore. We lose on trade. We lose with ISIS. We lose with one of the worst deals I've ever seen negotiated of any kind. That's our recent catastrophe with Iran. We don't win. Let me give you one quick example. These folks, CNBC, they had it down at 3.5 hours. I just read today in the New York Times, $250,000 for a 30-second ad. I went out and said, it's ridiculous. I could stand up here all night. Nobody wants to watch 3.5 or 3 hours. It was a big sacrifice, and I have to hand it to Ben. We called Ben. He was with me 100%. We called in. We said, that's it. We're not doing it. They lost a lot of money. Everybody said it couldn't be done. Everybody said it was going to be 3 hours, 3.5, including them. And in about 2 minutes, I renegotiated it down to 2 hours so we can get the hell out of here. Not bad. Not bad. And I'll do that with the country. We will make America great again. And thank you, everybody.
You have been very critical of Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, who has wanted to increase the number of these H-1B.
I was not at all critical of him. I was not at all. In fact, frankly, he's complaining about the fact that we're losing some of the most talented people. They go to Harvard, they go to Yale, they go to Princeton, they come from another country, and they're immediately sent out. I am all in favor of keeping these talented people here so they can go to work in Silicon Valley.
So you're in favor of increasing that?
I have not been at all critical of him.
Where did I read this and come up with this that you were...
Probably, I don't know. You people write this stuff. I don't know where you...
I don't write this stuff. Let's just be clear. Let's talk again.
If I could say just one thing.
Yeah.
I am the only person in either campaign that's self-funding. I'm putting up 100% of my own money. And right now, I will be putting up a tremendous... So far, I put up less than anybody, and I have the best results. Wouldn't that be nice if the country could do that? But I will be putting up, tremendous amounts of money. Super PACs are a disaster. They're a scam. They cause dishonesty. And you better get rid of them, because they are causing a lot of bad decisions to be made by some very good people. And I'm not blaming these folks, but I guess I could. Very good people are making very bad decisions right now. And if anything comes out of this whole thing with some of these nasty and ridiculous questions, I will tell you, you better get rid of the super PACs, because they're causing a big problem with this country, not only in dishonesty and what's going on, but also in a lot of bad decisions that are being made for the benefit of lobbyists and special interests.
Becky. You know, Mr. Trump, if I may just say,
just a minute, Mrs. Spinelli, let me follow up on this for just a moment. You had talked a little bit about Marco Rubio. I think you called him Mark Zuckerberg's personal senator because he was in favor of the H-1B.
I never said that. I never said that.
So this was an erroneous article the whole way around?
He's got another gentleman in Florida who happens to be a very nice guy, but not...
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Somebody's really doing some bad facts.
Since I've been mentioned, can I respond?
Yes, you may.
Okay. You know, the Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media. Who every single day, and I'll tell you why. Last week, Hillary Clinton went before a committee. She admitted she had sent emails to her family saying, hey...
And it says that, again, Mark Zuckerberg's personal senator, Marco Rubio, has a bill to triple H-1Bs that would decimate women and minorities. Are you in favor of H-1Bs? Are you opposed to them?
I'm in favor of people coming into this country legally. And you know what? They can have it any way you want. You can call it visas. You can call it work permits. You can call it anything you want. I've created tens of thousands of jobs. And in all due respect, and actually some of these folks I really like a lot, but I'm the only one that can say that. I have created tens of thousands of jobs. And I'll be creating many millions of jobs if I'm given the opportunity to be president. As far as Mark is concerned, as far as the visas are concerned, if we need people, it's fine. They have to come into this country legally. We have a country of borders. We have a country of laws. We have to obey the laws. It's fine if they come in, but they have to come in legally.
Thank you, sir.
That was mentioned in your question.
You get 30 seconds. Yeah.
Well, I've learned the rules on that. Look, in addition to what Donald is saying, we also need to talk about the legal immigration system for permanent residents.
You said you have a special permit to carry a gun in New York.
Yes.
After the Oregon mass shooting on October 1st, you said, by the way, it was a gun-free zone. If you had a couple of teachers with guns, you would have been a hell of a lot better off.
Or somebody else. Right.
Would you feel more comfortable if your employees brought guns to work?
Yes, I might feel more comfortable. I would say that I would, and I have a permit, which is very unusual in New York, a permit to carry, and I do carry on occasion, sometimes a lot, but I like to be unpredictable so that people don't know exactly what to carry. Unlike this country, by the way, unlike our country where we're totally predictable, and the enemy, whether it's ISIS or anybody else, they know exactly what we're doing because we have the wrong leadership. But I feel that the gun-free zones, and, you know, when you say that, that's target practice for the sickos and for the mentally ill. That's target. They look around for gun-free zones. I mean, we could give you another example. The Marines, the Army, these wonderful 6 soldiers that were killed. Two of them were among the most highly they weren't allowed on a military base to have guns, and somebody walked in and shot them, killed them. If they had guns, he wouldn't be around very long. I can tell you there wouldn't have been much damage. So I think gun-free zones are a catastrophe. They're a feeding frenzy for sick people.
We called a few Trump resorts, few Trump properties that do not allow guns with or without a permit. Would you change those policies?
I would change them.
Okay.
Sure. I would change them.
All right. Thank you.